All right, so once again, I was surfing around YouTube as I typically do, and I came across a documentary called $10 Death Trip Inside the Fentanyl Crisis. And this documentary takes place in Vancouver, BC, in Canada, and it looks eerily similar to San Francisco. You'll notice that these alleyways where these junkies are hanging out and using dope all day, they're covered in beautiful, colorful graffiti because they are trying to do the lipstick on a pig thing, and they have these needle exchanges where these community activists claim that they're helping, and I guess they're under the instruction of the local politicians. I'm not quite sure, but I will say that apparently I've never been to Vancouver, BC, but in this particular documentary, it does look incredibly similar to San Francisco, similar story. And I do have, there's another documentary about San Francisco, so you will see the similarities there. And there's also a little clip in here that I've pulled, or that I'm going to play from Vice, which of course is the millennial or maybe even perhaps Gen Z version of CNN. And these documentaries, they're not bad. They do seem to be showing what's really going on, but the framing is a little bit off. They're using, they're handling this situation with kid gloves and pretending that their weirdo enabling positions are actually helping. Of course, it's destroying the city, and that's all by design. There's also, they touch on Narcan or naloxone, which I've made a video about a long time ago about how it is basically destroying New York City and obviously some other cities around the world, apparently. And then you realize that naloxone has heavy funding from the Open Societies Foundation, which of course is founded by George Soros. So this is all tied into one terrible, disgusting, manufactured crisis. And they are pretending, of course, these people, these politicians, they will create these problems that only they can solve. And naturally, they're going to need more money to solve them. But I digress. Let's start here with the $10 Death Trip from the Docuverse YouTube channel and see what they have to say about the fentanyl crisis.
But here in the hardest hit neighborhood, the very people in the midst of its grip are the ones leading the fight back.
Right now we're going to go to the Washington Needle Depot. It's peer-led, and we hand out harm reduction supplies for the community.
Okay, so Sarah, the needle exchange manager, is already peppering this thing with euphemisms. It's peer-led, meaning they're hiring junkies to help other junkies, which I guess makes sense. I'm not going to knock it, but it's kind of like the blind leading the blind out there, the inmates running the asylum. Of course, Kathy Holchel will say that you can't even use the word inmate, but that's a completely different story. And this woman, Sarah, at this needle exchange, I think in her head, she truly believes that she's doing something good. I don't know if she's just been, it's not rocket science. You don't have to have the Mensa IQ through the roof to realize that your technique here is not working. You're only digging yourself a deeper hole. But I truly have to ask myself this question every day. Is it incompetence or is it malice? Maybe a little bit of both.
Peer-led means that the staff that work there use drugs themselves and are part of that community?
Yeah, absolutely.
Part of that community, the drug user community. So again, they're handling these people with kid gloves. If they're not going to ever speak the truth, nothing will ever get fixed. But that makes sense because their goal is not to fix anything, but siphon more money from the federal government, being Canada in this particular case. But like I said, we will get to San Francisco.
Yeah, it's really important that people from the community are the ones leading it. Hey, guys.
Hello. Hi, cameras. So double shift. No one showed up for this afternoon, so we're going to go hit up the East End.
Perfect.
And we got one OD this afternoon, one this morning.
Oh, man.
55 needles found and two Narcan kits given out. So.
That's your first day.
Yeah, first days. Not bad.
That's amazing.
All right.
Thank you so much.
We'll hit it.
Not bad and amazing. So this guy who's clearly a user is on his first day and he's talking about all the needles he found and the overdoses or whatever. And he says not bad and she says that's amazing. And to them, this is progress. This is success, apparently.
Hard, you're welcome.
Well
Take care,
done.
Sarah.
See ya.
And it was this guy's first day?
Yes.
And he saved an overdose already?
Yeah.
Is that pretty common? Would you have an overdose every day like that?
Well, I mean, it depends on where the routes are, but downtown east side, it's pretty common.
So again, I can't imagine that this grown woman actually goes home and thinks to herself, I did a good day's work. I mean, it never crosses their mind to maybe try to get people off this stuff, but rather to just help them do it so they can die of overdoses rather than die of other weird diseases that come from being completely unhygienic and sharing needles and all sorts. As long as you don't die of that stuff, it's okay. Now, of course, we can talk about the fentanyl testing and all that stuff, but again, it never crosses their mind to just say, hey, maybe you should get off this stuff, go to NA, or, you know, sometimes a little gel stint might be actually helpful to some people. That never crosses their mind. They're going to tell you that we're just going to help you do a little bit more, and as if eventually they're going to just come off it on their own.
Inside this building, clean injecting equipment is handed to locals through a hole in the wall. The idea
Clean injecting equipment is handed to locals through a hole in the wall 24 hours a day. And then you wonder, oh, well, why is this place so littered with junkies? It reminds me, and not to be too crass, but it reminds me of when I first moved to New York and I saw a local news story about how some of the public schools were being infested with rats. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, because they're literally trash everywhere. It was one of the first things I noticed when I moved to New York years ago. It was something that I literally published a book about. And to be honest with you, when I first got there, I was just kind of enjoying my time, like I was living in a new place. I was meeting new people. So I wasn't really up on how bad the trash was, but it was something that it was very easy to notice when you have these, giant black plastic bags everywhere, and then you're confused about why there's rats. So this is, again, not to be rude, but when you're handing out free needles, clean injection kits, 24 hours a day, you can't turn around and say, oh, well, I wonder why this alley is so disgusting.
The idea is to stop the spread of bloodborne viruses like hepatitis and HIV. It's open 24 hours a day.
So they want to stop bloodborne viruses, but they don't want to stop people from using. I wonder why that could be. Is it because they possibly are making money from Narcan and naloxone or whatever you want to call it? Do they have some sort of backdoor deals with these needle companies? I mean, it's all free. We're giving it out free 24 hours a day, but somebody's paying for it and somebody's benefiting from this.
And hands out 1 million syringes a year.
They hand out 1 million syringes a year. I think San Francisco might actually do more. Go ahead and fact check me on that. But some years ago, I think it was around 4 million. It's insane.
So, Corey, how many needles would you give out in a normal shift?
Oh, wow. I've gone through, one of these boxes have 500 rigs in it, and one day I went through 4 boxes of rigs.
So clearly, they say peer, like it's peer led or whatever. So it's meaning, they're hiring junkies to help other junkies, which again, I guess isn't such a bad idea. So maybe you have somebody there that you can trust, but who's steering the ship? It's that girl, Sarah, or whatever her name was from a couple moments ago. Is she the one in charge? And she looks like she may have been on drugs, and she's actually. So these people are all going to pretend like they're trying to get clean or pretend like they are clean. I don't actually believe they are. Maybe the one in charge was a junkie, and now she is actually clean. I don't know. But either way, this system is not going to work, and they all know it, but they're going to do it anyways.
Shifts, yeah. That was a busy day.
Why is it so important that people around here can get access to those clean needles?
Well, they'll use whatever they need to use. They'll use a dirty rig that they find. That's how people get Hep C and AIDS, right? They'll share rigs. They will use toilet water, puddle water, whatever they need to use to get water, right?
And I guess that water's going straight into their bloodstream, and that does not sound great.
Well, can you imagine the diseases in these alleys where people urinate and feces, and this is known as Piss Alley. Smells.
She says it. She says this place is known as Piss Alley. So these people are destroying the city block, and rather than try to fix it, they're just going to enable it, which I mean, it's kind of like a Amsterdam thing. If you ever watch The Wire, they're trying to contain it to one little portion of the city, which I guess there's an argument there, but eventually it's gonna spread, and that's exactly what we've seen in San Francisco.
Like piss, right?
From the back of the building, the staff run a mobile response unit working in shifts to reverse street overdoses.
So for my shift, I have my vest on. I have a 8.8 Narcan ready to go. I have my bike, my helmet, and I always have extra Narcan on me.
So she always has extra Narcan. They love this Narcan stuff. It is their savior. And then when you realize that it's heavily backed or heavily funded by the Open Society Foundation, it all starts to make sense. Anecdotally, when I was in New York and I went to go talk to some George Floyd BLM protesters at Lower Manhattan's City Hall Park, which, for the record, I was arrested there protesting the lockdown only a couple weeks earlier. But for whatever reason, these people are allowed to camp out there for nearly a month. And when I go there to ask them what the message was, they talk about Narcan training. They don't mention George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake or Oscar Grant. They don't mention any of that. They say, we are doing naloxone trainings. And that's when it really all starts to come together. We see the jokes and the memes about how Soros funded protesters and blah, blah, blah. But then when you realize that they are actually working for somebody to give out naloxone, it all starts to fall into place. And this woman is buying it hook, line, and sinker. She thinks she's an actual savior to the city. But they're all so backwards that we can call it clown world or bizarro world or whatever it is. But these people have no idea what they've gotten themselves into. And they, more importantly, perhaps have no idea the trauma, drama, or just what they're putting the actual city through. So you guys are standing there, doing your virtue signaling, pretending that you're going to really go out there and clean stuff up, but you're obviously just making this so much worse.
So in case I come across multiple overdoses, I'll put that right here, right now.
And all of these clips, all of these documentaries, between the three of these little short one's like an hour, and then one's 30 minutes, and then one's only 10 minutes or whatever. But between all of these, we never hear the notion that maybe we should try to get these people off this stuff. And I would venture to say, and I've said this for many years now, is that some of these politicians might just possibly have a hand not only in the actual drug trade, but the backdoor deals with the needles and the waters, the little water squeezers and the ropes that they use to tie off. I mean, every single little bit of this, they benefit from. And of course, we will see London Breed, the mayor of San Francisco, who gets down to it and basically, I don't want to say it's the quiet part out loud anymore. That phrase, I guess, has been overused. But she goes out there and says, well, the only thing that we need to fix this problem is more federal funding. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself.
Workers like Jen patrol these alleyways, administering life-saving medical interventions.
And there we have more euphemisms. Oh, it's just so life-saving. No, life-saving would be helping these people get off the drugs, but this is just how they're going to frame it over and over and over again. Is this pharmaceutical that we've been gifted, that we made a deal with the federal government, that's life-saving. That's what's really going to help.
Their secret weapon is naloxone.
Their secret weapon is naloxone. They're talking about it like these people are actual superheroes when really they're not much more. I mean, these are just the government-funded drug dealers versus the guy on the street who's selling the fentanyl, who's not technically in cahoots with the federal government. Well, he might be, and it might just be beyond his knowledge. We can talk about, the history of that sort of thing in a different video, but the framing here is they really want you to think that these people handing out or enabling these drug users are actual heroes.
Fentanyl antidote, commonly known by its brand name, Narcan.
The fentanyl antidote is their secret weapon. Give me a break.
Fentanyl is an opiate, and what it does is it shuts down your respiratory system. So pretend that this is fentanyl coming in your system, right? So when you shoot someone up with Narcan, it's like a wall goes up, and so the fentanyl hits the wall. It can't keep on going. The more Narcan you put into the system, the bigger that wall gets.
So what you're saying is it's actually quite easy to reverse an overdose?
Yes, it is.
So then, if it's that
We just need more Narcan. Give us more Narcan. That'll save everybody.
easy to reverse an overdose, why do we have so many people dying of overdose?
Because people are using by themselves. People are really ashamed about their drug use.
Okay, so people are using by themselves, and she doesn't know. Again, what she's saying is do drugs with a friend. So bring somebody else in. So now, when you go to do drugs, bring a friend. So it's not just you. Now we want to harm reduce, quote unquote, as they would call it. We want to reduce the harm for two people, and she doesn't even realize that what she's saying is completely backwards.
You're labeled as a criminal or a junkie or a crackhead.
Well, you are all those things. You are a criminal. It is illegal. You are a junkie. And I guess in this particular case, you're not a crackhead because that refers to crack alone. Shout out to Hunter Biden.
So they use by themselves in dark places, like where people can't see them or can't find them until it's too late.
If you find someone overdosing, how long have you got?
You got 3 minutes, and that depends. I mean, usually it starts off that their lips are blue, and then you only got so much time to react. If you find them their face is purple, it means you're staying on death's door, and if you find their face is black, you have like a slim chance of bringing them back.
So when you do find someone that's OD'd and you're able to turn that around, save their life, how does that feel?
Extremely stressful and traumatic. You remind yourself this is why you do this job. So for myself, personally, in the last 2 years, I responded to 31 drug overdoses. One Friday, we had 103 overdoses. And then a week later, we had 12 people die in the city of Vancouver.
On one day?
In one day.
Okay, so there you have it. She's rattling off the stats, but then is still going to try to sell it as though this is a good thing, even though clearly it's not working. So let's go on to the next one.